Here's a question that's been happening a lot on the left recently for a variety of different reasons that we're going to get into. Has Joe Biden lost your support? Now, if you are not on the left, if you're a centrist, if you're on the right, this conversation probably doesn't apply to you as much, but the president of the United States has been hemorrhaging support amongst the Democratic base. Recent polls are showing that his support amongst Democrats has dropped 11 points. His approval ratings overall are at 37%. Voters under 35 now have an approval of him of just 25% coming out of certain polls. He's losing support amongst independents, dropping 4% in the last month. And this is all coming after just a few months being removed of over 70% of the country, including a majority of Democrats saying that they did not want Joe Biden to run again. Now, with the October 7th attacks in Israel, the unequivocal backing that Biden has given to the country of Israel has seen his support drop even more amongst millennials and Gen Z. So we are also seeing now that there is a congressman out of Minnesota who is openly primarying Joe Biden because he is afraid that Joe Biden's lagging poll numbers will lead to an inevitable defeat next November. It begs a really honest question. Has Joe Biden lost your support? And do you think that he can honestly win next year, given what's happening to him right now? I want to start off with you, Natalie, specifically. Do you think does Joe Biden still have your support, and do you think he can win next year?
Support is a funny word. I mean, I voted for him, right? Because those were our options last time. But have I ever been a Joe Biden fan? No, not really. I think we had better people that we could have ran. But I'm a big firm believer that voting is sort of like getting on a bus where you just want it to get you as close to your destination as you can be. And to me, in this moment, living in the reality that we're living in, if it's going to be between him and Trump, I'm always going to vote. First of all, I'm never sitting an election out. That's just me. I vote in every election. But two, if I'm going to pick between Trump and Biden, I'm still going to vote for Biden. But does he have my support? Not really, no. And so I think this is more of a conversation around the failing of this two-party system than anything else, because I'd love to see some fresh ideas, progressive ideas, really somebody that understands what the people want put into play here. Do I think that's going to happen? No. So yeah, I'm going to hold my nose and vote for him, but I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, one thing that I see very few Americans talking about is the fact that our voting system is so flawed.
Yeah.
Because the United States uses a first past the post voting method, which is a winner take all system. So that prevents any third parties from actually gaining power. So that leaves us with no leftist or progressive party in the United States. We have what would consider to be by global standards a center right party and a far right party to choose between. Both of which are funded by billionaires and corporate interests. So obviously, like, voting, especially in local elections, like, it can have an impact on people's lives. I'm never going to say that people like just shouldn't vote, but it makes it very difficult to, like, I agree with what you said of, like, you can vote for someone and just not support them whatsoever. But that's a difficult position to be in.
Isn't that sad, though, that that's what we're saying?
So we need to have this conversation, John.
You go first, Desmond.
Oh, you want me to go first? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm done supporting Joe Biden. I can't do it. I understand when you're on the left, all the different people who will come for you for saying something like that. They will point to the Supreme Court being overturned. They will point to all the mania that happened underneath Trump. I want to give some caveats to why I'm taking the position that I'm taking. Or maybe some context, maybe caveat is not the right word, context here. First of all, it's less of a powerful position for me to take living where I'm at. Kind of like talking to what we've been talking about with the voting in our country. I live in the state of Montana. It's a red state. He was never going to win this state. So my vote was symbolic anyway. So honestly, if I voted for him or didn't vote for him at the top of the ticket, it was never going to register on the Electoral College because we have a gross system that is the Electoral College that's still in place anyway. But support is, I think, a different word than voting.
Mhm.
As a person who has somewhat of a platform online, I have the attention of thousands of people every day. I can post things. I know people are going to listen. I know people are going to watch. I know they're going to read. And while it's not maybe Pod Save America power or Joe Rogan power, it is something. There are thousands of people who listen to what I have to say every time that I post something. And I take that very seriously. And I cannot in good conscience continue to say nice things about an administration that is doing what it's doing in Israel right now with its unconditional support of what's happening there. I cannot bring myself to do it. I'm not going to tell people who they should vote for. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in telling other people how they should vote or what they should do or what they should believe in, but I will express my frustration and I will withhold my support when it comes to the next election cycle in 2024. When people are talking about that election cycle, I will say everything I've always said about Trump and how I feel about him, because I do think that he is an existential threat. But I cannot also at the same time turn around and tell people that I think they should vote for Joe Biden, because I morally just cannot bring myself to do so anymore. I think if you live in a safe state, a safe blue or red state, it's a little easier to make that choice. If you're in one of the 15 swing states, like our Pennsylvanian friends here are, I think that's a much tougher decision to make. But I will no longer be supporting people to think in any way positively about the Biden administration.
Yeah, it's you bring up a good point there. Are you going to vote for Joe Biden? Are you going to support Joe Biden? And for us specifically, as small but still influential people, are you going to go to bat for him? And I really felt myself gearing up to go to bat for him. Like we kind of discussed this earlier when he went in the picket line. He had been doing better in my book. And I'm kind of with Natalie. I was never a fan of Joe Biden. He never had my support. But I was like looking ahead and I was like, yeah, no, election year rolling around, Trump's starting to, pop back into my life. And I'm like, yeah, I'll probably end up going to bat for him and, circling the wagons in 2024. Now I don't even know if I'll vote for him. Like I'm not one of those people who's like, just anti-Democrat, like, total far left person. In fact, I've said many times on this show, voting third party's dumb. Like, it doesn't work. It's not how you make change. But even I am looking at it and going, God, how can I cast a vote for a president who's actively slaughtering thousands of people in a genocide? Like, if the choice was between, I don't know, fucking Mussolini and Hitler, would I vote for either of them? And like, I don't know which one would be better. I don't fucking know. But like, and yeah, like the objective argument is always going to be there that the bus thing, Natalie, like you're right. I know you're right. I feel like I'm a fairly pragmatic person. And even I right now, I'm like, if the vote was tomorrow, I don't know if I could put Joe Biden's name on the ballot. And I will probably change my mind by 2024. But the fact that I even feel that way is disturbing. The fact that so many people feel that way is terrible. And the thing that I have been saying online and publicly is there's such a backlash from Joe Biden, supporters and liberals and centrists in general, whenever you bring up this topic and they're like, oh, well, you have to vote for Biden or you're basically giving the election to Trump. And it's like, the thing I will go to fucking bat for right now is stop telling me who to fucking vote for and start telling Joe Biden to do his fucking job and end a genocide. Like, it blows my mind that people want to take their energy and tell people, like fucking Palestinian Americans who have family who are getting slaughtered literally by Joe Biden, and tell them that they're wrong if they don't vote for Joe Biden because they're going to be handing Trump the presidency. Go fuck yourself. Tell Joe Biden, if the stakes are so high that you'll vote for someone who's enabling a genocide, I might even agree with you there, but tell the fucking guy who's enabling the genocide to stop doing that so he doesn't lose all the votes. That is the conversation that needs to be being had, not you should vote for Joe Biden just because you should and it's the right thing to do. Because the conversation is so far past that point that like it has really pissed me off.
But I think that's why, and I agree with you. I think that's the big disconnect happening here, right? It's our government is not and has not been listening to what people want, and not just about what's going on over there, but for how many things that are going on over here that we've been wanting, demanding, and needing. And so the frustration is, and you're right, it's like, how do you pick between X and Y when it's sometimes it feels like the same side or the same coin, just two different sides. And it's like, this is why we need to be organizing on the left to get really good, viable candidates. Because I feel like for a while, the Democrats were just asleep at the wheel and the Republicans were organized and they were ready and they played the long game for 40 years. And I just feel like we're now almost like having this aha moment, like, oh God, I guess we have to be like getting people ready at the local level so we can get them going so that they're ready to step up to these national spaces. Like we have Summer Lee coming out of, Pittsburgh. She lives right in my backyard, and like, she's somebody that I think with the right, support and timing could be a viable candidate. I think AOC could too. This is just me, but like there are people that I think could be running for president, but we have not set that stage. And so to me, this is the inevitable outcome of that lack of collective will on our end. And to your point, yeah, don't scream at me who to vote. Get me excited about who these people are. And right now, there's not a lot of excitement. Who else is going to run? I don't feel much excitement coming from the left over very many people at all. And you can't even get people to agree with who is on the left. And to CJ's point earlier, she's 100% right. We don't have a progressive party in this country. It's so far crazy right. And then the ones that are centrist right look liberal in comparison. These are not good options. Not at all.
Nope.
Even Bernie Sanders is closer to Joe Biden on this issue than he is to me. Like that's insane.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also want to talk about sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, good.
I also want to talk about Biden's climate record because he made a lot of promises when he was campaigning for office, but in his first 2 years in office, he approved more than 6,400 permits for drilling on public lands, which is more than the Trump administration did. Like it's he's literally like wreaking more damage. I think last year, the United States broke its record for the most fossil fuels produced in 1 year. It's set to break it again this year. He approved the Willow Project in Alaska, which I read, and I love this. If all of Biden's clean energy goals were met, the Willow Project alone would cancel them out twice over. Like, and I think
that's powerful.
So I think it's complicated to talk about age and climate change. And in my experience, I have organized with so many people that are older that feel so strongly about the climate crisis and put so much time and energy and love into it. At the same time, if we have minimum age restrictions for who can run for president, we're saying that people under 35 are not equipped to represent the country. I think we also need to recognize that older politicians have little to no incentive to risk their political careers in a way, the security that they have, to prevent a mass extinction event that won't significantly affect them in their lifetimes.
Very true. The problem that the Biden administration is now coming to terms with is that, unlike, I think, people on the right, and I'm making a generalization here, but I don't think that Republican voters are as interested in what their representatives actually follow through with when it comes to policy as Democratic voters are. We are much more interested in policy goals. Yeah. And when you look at policy specifically, were people voting against Trump in 2020? Absolutely. But they were also voting for the things that Biden said he cared about. He talked about reforming an inhumane immigration system at the southern border that was put on full display with people in cages during the Trump administration. He has got into office, and besides changing the family separation policy, his policies look identical to the Trump administration's. Identical as far as immigration is concerned. Also, he talked about having there being more kind of transparency with policing. None of the bills that he put forth have actually have gone to and received the votes that he said they were going to get. And as much energy as there was around the defund the police movement, he's come out time and time again and said, we need to not do that. We need to fund the police. He's also said that he was going to get rid of so many of these convictions when it came to marijuana convictions across the country. He has not done that. They have not changed the scheduling around it like they said they were going to do. He said that he would actually bring forth a public option, said that time and time and time again. Since Biden's been in office, he has not even uttered the phrase public option, let alone bring a bill for that to the House or to the Senate. He also said that if Medicare for All even came to his desk, he would veto it. Like, where is the incentive? Where is it? You can't just live off the fumes of we're better than Trump, so deal with it. That is a losing strategy. You have to give people something to vote for. Now, you can point to an infrastructure bill or the CHIPS Act or the PACT Act. These aren't bad things, but let's be honest here, like that isn't what's hurting people right now. The economy is absolutely terrible. We're not seeing anything done about the housing crisis. We're not seeing enough being done by corporate price gouging. People are hurting right now. The Biden administration isn't listening to us whatsoever. And his support is honestly really reflective of his job. In fact, in my mind, his approval would probably be even lower if he wasn't running against Trump again. But the fear of Trump, rightly so, is actually essentially keeping him afloat right now. Is the only reason he has a viable chance next year.
He called me repugnant. Like he called, and he didn't do it. His press secretary did.
Yes,
but he's called. She called anti-Israel protesters anti-Semitic. Like this is the contempt that he has for his own party. Like I don't understand how, real like Joe Biden supporters look at that and go, well, you're the problem. Like I don't understand how they're like, no, you need to vote for him anyway, even though he's calling you anti-Semitic, and it's like, where are we at here? I've expressed my love for John Fetterman on this show, and we'd mentioned him earlier with the labor movement, and I still think he's probably one of the better senators in the country, but he's completely just gone so pro-Israel that like I've been repulsed by him. It's the way I feel about all of these Democrats right now, and I'll still vote for him, probably, I think. But if, again, as I said, if a very politically active person like myself is just completely washed with it and feeling like it might not even be a possibility, I can't imagine what the average Democrat is feeling right now. If they're even,
it's hard to have that even come out of your mouth.
It is.
It is.
Really
it's hard to say it out loud. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard, and I hate that's where we're at. I just hate it. It's terrible. And one thing that I wanted to talk about, and I don't know if it's going to come from us, I don't know where it's going to come from, but there needs to be a reckoning of progressive candidates primarying every goddamn Democrat on the sole issue of Israel and Palestine. Like, there needs to be wall-to-wall campaign ads saying XYZ. John Fetterman supported genocide. Joe Biden supported genocide. AOC supported. Every single one of them should be primaried on that specific issue, and there should be carnage, because that is not where the Democratic Party stands on this. It just isn't. And
you know what, John?
There could be
I gotta
a very
say,
conservative movement to make that happen.
You can just primary people on what the promises were of the 2020 election cycle. Like, the Biden administration and all Democrats followed suit, saying we're going to address healthcare, we're going to address the economy, we're going to go after corporations who are price gouging people. They're not doing any of that. They're not fulfilling their own promises. Like, they could just run on the issues they ran on last time, because it was evident, and there was so many exit polls that showed this, like time and time again in the primaries of 2020, that the majority of people wanted progressive legislation. They wanted it. They just haven't gotten it since Biden has taken office. And it's mind-boggling to me that we are in the situation that we are in. We deserve a better representative of the Democratic Party than Joe Biden.
maybe the hashtag, the whatever the slogan is, what did you do when they ended abortion, when they ended Roe v. Wade? What did you do? You didn't vote to codify abortion. When they bombed Gaza and committed genocide, what did you do? You voted to send $14 billion to help them. You know, that it needs, and the thing is, the movement's there. Like I've said this before, as much as we don't have a progressive party right now, we have more self-avowed socialists in the government than any point in American history. We have more support for unions in this country than at least any point in anyone's lifetime. The movement is there and it's ready to happen. And I really hope the level of contempt that the DNC is showing for the Democratic Party by not having a primary, not having primary debates, forcing us to have Joe Biden as our only option to defeat Trump. The reckoning needs to be in 2024. It just has to be.
I appreciate what you said about the DNC pushing potential voters away, because I grew up in a very rural community, and I think it's so common for Democratic politicians to show that they don't actually give a fuck about these people, and are kind of like repulsed by them. Like I said this, I think, on the podcast before, but like Hillary Clinton didn't come to Wisconsin at all in 2016. She didn't go there once. And in my hometown, like obviously everyone loves Trump because he came to where I'm from, like this little town in the middle of nowhere. And even though everything that he was saying was a lie, he was actually willing to go to where these people live and tell them that he cares about them. And they never have that happen. So I think it's like, I'm just always surprised when people expect some of these communities to, like, they point out that these communities are voting against their own interests. But I think it's very easy for them. Like, I feel like the Democratic Party makes it easy for them to do that because it's the combination of the Democratic Party not actually being able to effectively help these people, or like even making efforts to help these people. But also just like, again, this whole kind of like looking down on these communities. I don't know. It was just like very frustrating to grow up with that.
What does that reckoning look like for you, John?
We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I do think it's like important to be around people with different political opinions, because I think it helps you empathize more with their point of view. Because I know a lot of people that are like very sweet and wonderful interpersonally that voted for Donald Trump, and like I think you just get used to having that cognitive dissonance and still being able to approach them as a person. Like I know a lot of leftists and progressive that aren't willing to engage with those people at all. But it's like, how do you expect to be able to change those people's minds? Of course, if you're like putting yourself in like any danger, like physical or emotional danger, like definitely it makes sense not to engage with that. But I think it's also useful for confirming your own beliefs to actually have to defend them against people that really strongly don't believe in that. So I feel like I appreciate having had that experience and not being in a bubble, because I think no matter what side you're on, being in that echo chamber can be really damaging, and also just gives you a very unrealistic picture of what people actually think and believe.
Sure. Natalie, you had a question?
Yeah, I had just asked what John thinks that reckoning looks like from your perspective, when you say there's a reckoning.
I think that looks like much farther left candidates primarying centrist Democrats and winning, because I think we mentioned on the show before, like if the DNC, if they win 2024 and they don't codify Roe into law, I think that destroys them. I think that like this is their absolute last chance to ever run on it again, and I think that it will obliterate the party. Like I cannot imagine that the party will survive in the way that it is. And you know what? Let's make it happen now, and let's make sure we win it, because it can go the other direction too. You know, and to me, the reckoning is we have more young people than ever before voting. For the first time ever, millennials and Gen Z are going to be the majority of the country voting in an election. I think it might have technically been in 2020, but it's definitely going to be in 2024. Yeah. And if we have people on the ballots who simply are running against the centrist Democrats who didn't do anything when all of these terrible things that happened that we have all seen. If we have a significant, like, look at what was it, 11 fucking Republicans did to the party. You know, they destroyed it, blew it up. If we get 30, 40, 50 far left progressives in the DNC, suddenly it's not the DNC anymore. Suddenly it's something else. And that's what the reckoning looks like to me.